Hi guys, so I'm going to start with another mystical shaman oracle. I know I need to mix it up, but this is just what I'm feeling, so that's what I'm doing. And of course, it's number 14 with the curse. And I'm like, oh man, let's not do negative stuff. But you know what? What kind of friends would we be with each other if we didn't talk about the bad stuff, right? That's what we're here for. So, and it's not a bad card. It's actually a pretty good card. And it's kind of something that I've always really hinted on in my life, and kind of what I think we all kind of in the collective, as they say, how we've kind of been expressing, and I think it's important to talk about. The essence of this card says, the curse refers to the limiting stories of our ancestors and the karma from former lifetimes that preordains the events of our lives. It is the source of negative patterns, and it can show up as a disease, a destructive force, or a blockage in our creative energy. The curse holds us hostage to a false story that we confuse for reality. Recognizing the original wound that is playing out in our life can heal it. It's kind of like that whole concept of, like, you know, if you feel like you have a shadow that you're dealing with, or something that, you know, that, like a blockage, to speak it is very liberating, and it kind of helps you get that out of the way. So the invitation says, it is time to recognize the source of your limitations. Did your grandparents live with a mindset of scarcity? Did you inherit genes for heart disease? Were you a slave or a master in a past life? This karmic legacy is ready and waiting to be seen, to be untangled, and to be released. Honor the players and their stories. Forgive everyone and everything. Craft a new life course for yourself. And I think that's important. I wasn't going to read like the second part, because sometimes I don't like to, like, you know, spend so much time reading, but at the same time it's important, because I feel like that's a good fact. A lot of times with our stories, we like to kind of like, you know, oh, this has happened to me, so I can't this. You know what I mean? The best way to overcome, and the best, most rewarding way to get past those things that have been done to you is to release that, let it go, not hold that person responsible. You know, you don't have to be the best friend with somebody who hurt you, but the longer you allow them to take that hold on you, the more damage they do, and the more you are actually prolonging that hurt. So the best thing you can do is to overcome and thrive, right? And then underneath I have a crystal, I was going to say a crystal shaman oracle. It's a crystal angel oracle, and it's apophyllite. And it says, increased support, your positive focus and willingness to receive have opened the doorway to an abundance of help and opportunities. So, you know, yeah, I feel like that's kind of like saying the same thing. It's like, you know, we know the whole thing. Like, if you think positive, you act positively, you know, positive shift kind of happens in your life. Whether that's through the mindset or the energy. You know, I don't have a hold on anything as far as like how it works. I just know that like it works. And like, if you ever listen to Minnow Pontero, he will say all the time when he talks about, you know, the law of attraction and things like that. He says it doesn't hurt, or something like that. Mainly he says, like, you know, if it doesn't hurt to not do it, it's not like it's free. So just do it. Do you know what I mean? He's funny. If you don't know him, you should check him out. He's pretty good. But anyway, so the first column, I kind of had this as like who this is about, you know, who is this representing? So this is somebody who is being represented by the Two of Wands and the Emperor. And this is very common for the energy of somebody who is stepping into great opportunity, right? This is somebody who has the vision and wants to explore and expand, and you have the ability and the power to do that. This is somebody, and it might be an Aries, you know, I'm not just saying that because I'm an Aries. It's just, these are very Aries-ish cards, okay? Because it's in the first decan of the wands, so that's an Aries card. And then you got the Emperor, but it could be any type of fire sign. It doesn't even have to be a fire sign. You could be a freaking Scorpio for all you know. I just picked that out because my husband's a Scorpio. So anyway, but this is somebody who's being in this opportunity right now. You are being in the mindset or the energy of being able to overturn this thing that had happened to you, or this circumstance that you were born into, or this lineage, or even this generation. Because a lot of these things, like, I like to think of generational curses as not only in our family, but it's also our society. These are things that, you know, we've learned to accept as truth, and all it does is just hinder you. But at the same time, a lot of times, which I kind of feel like this reading, when we get a little bit deeper into it, I feel like this is kind of what it's saying too, is that a lot of times the scars and the things that we go through, it's almost like that whole concept of, you know, in the beginning, like in the magic schools and the different types of being initiated was literally like being initiated. You would be like put through these horrible, you know, rites of passion. Oh, maybe that means something for somebody. Rites of passage. And then like, you know, through that exhaustion and that, you know, the extreme energy that you're exerting and, you know, finding the details and like, why am I doing this? You know what I mean? You get to a certain part of understanding and wisdom. And so it's kind of like that. I kind of feel like that's kind of what happens. But some of it is just, you know, remembering what we've forgotten. And sometimes we have to see those things in action to remember. And we become wiser through that. And then sometimes just like, and this has been like, I don't know, like common in the readings I've been listening to lately. And I said it a couple weeks ago too, like 2 steps forward, 4 steps back, or whatever. That whole concept of you give a little bit and you have to take a little bit back. You know what I mean? That's kind of how it goes. And I feel like we're kind of in that sense right now, like generation wise. Like I feel like a lot of people in my generation, I'm literally on the edge of, you know, Generation X and Millennial. So I'm 1980. So that's when I was born. And that's just, you know, I'm old, but that's saying, you know, like I'm right on the edge and I see my kids, like they have so much potential, but there's a lot of stuff that's happened to like, you know, the 20-year-olds and that generation right now. And even my kids are kind of like absorbing that in their surroundings, and I'm trying to protect them, but also I'm trying to heal up all my stuff too. But I think that if we can do that, like you kind of, and I had said this to somebody today too. I said, you know, I can't help you until I help myself. It's that whole concept of putting on your mask, you know, in the emergency situation, or like if you're a medical person and you know, like in first aid, first thing you do is you check the area. Because if it's an unsafe area, you're not going to help anybody. You know what I mean? Like say like an electrical wire went down and you're standing in a puddle of water, you're not going to help that person to give them CPR because you're going to get electrocuted, right? It's that kind of thing. Like you can't pour from an empty cup. So generation wise, that's why we need to build ourselves from the inside out to kind of help those others. Anyway, that's a little spiel. I didn't mean to get that far gone. Hope this isn't going to be too long. But anyway, so my second column, I had 2 come out. So what I do is I do my columns. I do the top cards first, and then I kind of like use like the second cards on the bottom of the rows to kind of like amplify the energy, to kind of like tell the story a little bit deeper, almost like clarifying. So the first of the second column, the 2 cards I got was the 2 of Wands and the Sun, 2 of Swords and the Sun, and 2 or 3 things came out. So first thing was, I feel like we're choosing to, we're needing to choose to be happy, we're going to choose to be happy, or we're choosing to find that happiness, that sense of awe and wonder. And like we were as kids, where like, you know, you can fall down, you get back up, that type of thing. And I feel like also with the 2 of Swords, and it's kind of interesting because I've heard this several times in some Witch of Scythe readings, and I also hear this all the time with Menopause Tarot. Like he'll say that the 2 of Wands is about that third way. It's you know, you look, she's got swords to the left and the right, but then that space between it, it's about being creative and making those decisions with your intuition, because her eyes are covered, right? At least I think that's what he says. Well, that's what I got out of it. But I feel like that's also with the Queen of Cups there. That's what it's about. It's using that inner knowing and that inner guidance to choose to be happy, feeling those energetic pulls when you do something, and understanding like how that can guide you the right way, right? And, you know, we're using the good feelings as our compass. We're using that good intuition, heading towards the things that make us feel that way. Or maybe it's a sense of wonder, but we're not allowing those things that block us. Now, we're not allowing those, oh, this happened, or those bad feelings or anything to block us. We're learning how to overcome that. And so my third column is, you know, always kind of like what we have around us, what what kind of skills or assets or energy or even people around us. And I feel like with the 10 of Swords, it kind of gives me that whole initiate type of idea, like I was talking about before. Not that I feel like we have to suffer to get somewhere. That's that mindset that we're breaking through. It's almost like learning wisdom through experience. It's understanding that, taking what's happened and rising above it. It's almost like, gaining that knowledge and passing it on by continuing to go in a positive direction and getting past all that crap, right? And then not only for your kids, if you don't have kids, but for the future generation, but just for humanity and, that life itself, right? We're taking those things and pushing it on. Maybe that's a little deep, but I'm a deep person. So, but I feel like also with that hand gesture, that is something that the Hierophant does, and it can mean blessings, but it can also mean exactly like, this journey, this path that we've been on is for a deeper wisdom. All those things tie into it. And then we have the 7 of Cups under that. And I feel like with the 7 of Cups and the 10 of Swords is saying that, this brings opportunity. That 10 of Swords was a catalyst for all this opportunity. But it also can be a warning too. It's kind of like, don't overthink it. You know what I mean? If you're like me, you'll spend my husband will say, hey, should I do this, that, or the other thing? I'm like, 2 things. I'm like a toddler. You got to give me 2 choices or I'm not going to be able to help you. So, 7 I'd be there all day. But it's also recognizing that the potential too, right? Now that you've been through all that, the mental swords, all that hard, rough times, and it doesn't have to be mental, but a lot of times when we're going through stuff, I mean, look at all these people in these places. I'm not trying to bring people down, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but all these harsh things that people have gone through, and many of you probably have been through that. That's probably why you're here. And in my own life, things that were hard, but you got through it. And not only does it, if it's a physical thing or a situation in your life or, surroundings that are toxic or crazy or, scary, that affects you mentally. And, mental health is huge. Mental health is huge. And you got to get your mind right too. It's the whole package, right? Even how we're eating, how we conduct our physical activity, all of that, not to be harping on, nutrition and things like that, but a lot of that can affect how you are mentally, and that can affect your hormones and affect how you feel. Cause it's all into that. So when you're in a situation, when you're in stressful situations, it's huge. Your body thinks it's in a super life or death situation, and it might feel like that at that time. So it releases all these things. And so then, we go through all that stuff, and to be able to look back and release it and let it go, let that curse go, and understand that I can rise above this. I can do different, right? That's opportunity, especially with those 7 of Cups. That's opportunity. There's so many things that's possible. So, I didn't mean to get so deep in that, but again, this is where I am right now. And then my last column, we have the 9 of Pentacles, and then we have the Knight of Pentacles. Say that 10 times fast. 9 of Pentacles, 9 of Pentacles, 9 of Pentacles. Anyway, I'm so sorry. This is just who I am. But anyway, so here's the thing. We have the Emperor in here, okay? And we have the 9 of Pentacles in there. I feel like this is big on, there's something here. There's something that somebody has an opportunity for, and your life has been training for it. And even if it's just to make your life happier, even if it's just to gain some independence, even if it's just to get your mind right and get your life right. Because I feel like I'm at that moment right now where I'm kind of trying to, let the dust settle a little bit when I have my moments and I kind of lose myself. I think we all do that. But a lot of times I think that's kind of like a pause where we can kind of sweep off the porch a little bit and then start from scratch. Not necessarily from scratch, but you know what I mean? We just start over a little bit. We've made so much progress, but sometimes we keep going and going and going and we lose ourselves. It's finding ourselves. And we owe ourselves to kind of slow down a little bit and refine ourselves. Not refine ourselves because we're not worthy or because we're not doing it right, but because the little details, right? That daily maintenance that you do so things don't pile up. It's that. It's so easy when you get passionate and you get you get to a place where chaos is not the norm to kind of create chaos. We're so used to living in that fight or flight that when we don't have to anymore, it's really hard to realize that we don't have to anymore, So it's like we miss things, or we want things now. We want the end result before we even know what we're doing. So I feel like with the Nine of Pentacles and the Knight of Pentacles, this is saying that you are somebody who has come into themselves. You're ready for this opportunity of leadership and power or whatever, whether that be some small thing in your life, but you're ready to take control of that in a way that's not, overpowering. This is somebody that's like relaxing into themselves and taking the time for the little details to make it that much more enjoyable, right? And the slow and methodical part is not so much to be rigid. It's to really pay attention to the details, right? So it's the whole concept of like, it's the journey, not the end result, right? It's the things we find along the path. And it's kind of beautiful because I feel like that's what it is, right? That's the whole purpose of this whole thing. If we just fast forwarded to the end and we got to the good parts, then I don't think we would enjoy it much. Not that we need to suffer. I feel like I have to say that because from getting through that as a generational thing, I think it's good to highlight that you don't have to suffer to gain. But if you have suffered, that's fuel for the fire. That's fuel for your greatness, right? That's greatness fuel right there. That's like, when you go to sand something, like, my husband likes to, work on guitars a lot. And, that's like, if you have like a rough spot, you sand it out and you buff it out. And because it gets rid of all those impurities and all those, those rough spots, it gets rid of them. So we're kind of like, I don't know why I used this, but anyway, so it's kind of like, it's like we're buffering out things when we go through those things, is to highlight those things. I don't know why they happen. I honestly 100% do not have a set belief on why things happen the way they do. But all I know is we take those things and we move forward with them. But in a way that we're not forgetting to stop and smell the roses, so to speak. And so, I'm sorry. But anyway, so when I'm going to go to the Herbal Astrology Oracles, which both of them have Pluto in it, which is beautiful. I think that this is saying, these are things that are coming out, with Jupiter and Pluto, that's expanding on the deepness of things. That's expanding on, the depths of what we feel, those deeper emotions, the beautifulness of what Pluto can be. And with number 47, our first one, skull cap, stillness. I feel like that's definitely saying, take the time, slow down. It's about being still and realizing that you don't have to be in chaos, right? That's so good for you to just kind of like allow yourself to be. And I have to practice that a lot. Because Pluto and Saturn, which is what skull cap is, and that stillness, it's about allowing that depth to teach you, right? It's learning from the depths of your emotions. It's learning from the deep feelings. It's beautiful. I don't know. I love how that's a good combination. I don't know. I get excited. I don't know. Maybe you guys do too, but I get excited about combining, especially with these herbal astrology oracles. It's like I like to get the emotional or the lesson through the astrological things. I don't know. I just think that's interesting just because it's kind of like it always ties in together. But the lessons in the upright says it's stillness after the storm. Let go of control, trust in life, surrender to the divine plan, and break open. And then we're going to go to number 28, which is elder and wisdom. And that's the Jupiter and Pluto. Because, that's expanding on the depth. And I feel like wisdom, some people always think about it as, knowing the best thing or knowing everything you can about something. I feel like it's more understanding it on a deep level, Jupiter and Pluto, right? It's being able to expand on that and understanding that on a detailed level, right? Because we're talking about slowing down and paying attention to those details. And like, Elder is about, rising from the underworld, release, letting go, major transformation, higher wisdom, new perceptions, and awakening to the truth, which is so beautiful. So I know I got really excited about this one today, but I don't know. I made kind of like a little turning point in myself. I go through this and I hate to blame hormones, but who knows? It does affect us, and that's another thing too, is learning from that, learning about, what affects you and how we can kind of be aware of those things. Because a lot of times when we're in the middle of like something, again, naming whatever that is, sometimes forces us to kind of step back and look at things a little bit clearer and a little bit more detailed, and drawing out the understanding of that thing. Anyways, I hope this meant something for somebody today, and I will talk to you guys later.